And they say every haunting starts with a story, a moment when reality cracks and something else steps through. Welcome to Paranormal or Reality, where we bring you the most chilling true ghost stories from around the world. Some say these are just tales, others know better. Let's begin. Wyoming, for around 6 years now, and I've had quite a few strange experiences, none of which were as strange as one particular night in Vedawu. One thing that should be mentioned is that I'm a wheelchair user and my friend is abled. This is important for later in the story. Vedawu is a part of the Medicine Bow Forest that is just outside of Laramie. Something about these woods always gave me a feeling that I wasn't alone. I've camped there plenty of times and always had the same feeling. People have gone missing and have died there, much like in many forests, but it almost feels like they're still not at rest. This particular night in the forest was especially strange. I had just gone through something traumatic and called my best friend so I wouldn't have to be alone. She suggested we take a drive through the forest since we always felt better in nature. When I say there was a weird energy to Vedawu, I don't mean it in a negative way. I never feel in danger there, although I'm always aware of potentially dangerous wildlife. I just always get a strange feeling. So we hopped in the car and made the short drive to the pass that leads into the forest. At first, it was a very calm night, like any other. It wasn't the first time we'd taken drives like this. After going over a few hills, though, we saw two red lights on the trail that seemed to be steadily coming toward us. At first, we thought maybe it was some kind of off-road vehicle. It was low enough that it didn't look like a normal vehicle to us. Once we got over the next hill, my friend prepared to pull off to give the oncoming off-roader space to pass, but it never came by. We figured it must have turned off somewhere, but we never saw any other paths it could have taken before we should have met it. This was only the first odd encounter of the night. The particular place in Vedawu we were trying to reach was Pilot Hill, a small hill that overlooks our town. We were a bit shaken from the strange lights, but eventually made it to the gates that start the Pilot Hill Trail. We didn't plan to go far past the gates. We just wanted a better view of the town. However, when we got to the gate, my wheelchair locked up, stronger than my brakes usually work. After a moment, we double-checked that there were no rocks or roots blocking my wheels, and suddenly I was able to move again. We thought it was weird, but tried to pass the gate again, and once more my wheels locked up in exactly the same spot where the gate began. I felt this ominous sensation, like someone was watching us and telling us not to go any farther. We decided to get back in the car and find a campsite to hang out at instead. Both of those experiences were followed by the coolest meteor shower I've ever seen, and I felt better once I got home. The only time I was truly scared was when it felt like something was telling me not to take the trail. Maybe there was a bear up there, or a person with bad intentions, or maybe we would have gotten hurt, or maybe nothing would have happened at all. But I'm glad we didn't try it. Maybe it was just a coincidence that my wheelchair got stuck, but I definitely had a bad gut feeling, and I trusted it. My experience with the Ouija board happened back in 1999. At the time, I was in the British Army and had just returned from a 6-month tour in Kosovo. I'd been injured while on tour, so when I came home, I was sent to a military hospital for treatment. I ended up there for quite a while, and sitting around day after day quickly became extremely boring. One night, a few of us lads made a makeshift Ouija board, not because we knew what we were doing, but simply to pass the time. Not long after that, I learned there was a disused morgue in an unused section of the hospital. One night, out of sheer boredom, I decided to go there alone. The corridors leading to it were completely dark, and the morgue itself was pitch black. I sat in the middle of the main room, lit a cigarette lighter, and said out loud, "Show yourself." I wasn't trying to summon anything. I was just bored and trying to spook myself. I had never read anything about spells or conjuring. I had no idea what I was doing. About a week later, I was sent home on leave for the weekend. My home was about 200 miles away. One night, at my mom's house, she and I got into an argument. I walked out of the living room, through the kitchen, and opened the back door. That's when I saw a large, luminous blue orb hovering outside. It was about 80 feet in the air, and roughly the size of a large SUV or transit van. At first, I thought I must be imagining it, so I called my stepfather. Even though he'd just witnessed our argument, he could hear the urgency in my voice and came straight outside. When I asked if he could see it, he said yes. The orb then dropped about a meter and shot off at incredible speed. It had been so close that I could have thrown a stone and hit it. We then saw a second orb. While watching this one, we experienced what I can only call missing, or maybe even added, time. We watched the orb perform a maneuver, and then a few moments later realized we were watching the exact same maneuver again. It was extremely strange. That orb then shot straight upward into the sky and disappeared among the stars in about half a second. Years later, I calculated a rough estimate of its speed and got something around 40,000 miles per hour, moving vertically and completely silently. Then we saw a third orb. At first, it looked like it would pass overhead, but it suddenly made a 90-degree turn and came directly toward us. It stopped right above us, at a height where I could probably have hit it with a stone. My stepdad said he'd seen enough and ran inside. I stayed a bit longer until I felt the air around me become electrically charged, like static. That's when I also ran back into the house. A few days later, I returned to the military hospital. 2 nights after that, I had a nighttime visitation. I had just lain down in bed and was fully awake when, as soon as my head touched the pillow, an entity appeared beside me. It was about 7 feet tall and standing extremely close on my right side. It wore a black hooded cloak from head to toe, and I couldn't see any skin or facial features. 2 details stood out. First, the hood formed a sharply pointed triangular shape, which seemed odd second. It leaned over me in a way that looked unnatural. Instead of arching its back like a person would, it kept its back completely straight and bent forward from its pelvic area. Its arms hung straight at its sides. As soon as it appeared, I became completely paralyzed, except for my eyes. I remember looking up and down at the folds in its cloak. The paralysis was not sleep paralysis. I've experienced sleep paralysis my whole life, and this felt entirely different. I didn't tell anyone at the hospital what had happened. The next night, I had just come out of the shower when I saw my roommate outside our room in his boxer shorts, talking to a couple of nurses. His back was to me, but When he turned around, I realized something was seriously wrong. He looked absolutely terrified, gray-faced, trembling, eyes wide with huge pupils. When I asked what was going on, the nurses said he had seen a tall cloaked figure leaning over my bed, my empty bed. For years afterwards, strange things continued happening in my house. Electrical disturbances, orbs flying around, and unexplained spikes in my energy usage. The energy company even insisted I owed thousands of pounds, which was impossible because I was on a pay-as-you-go meter and still in credit. They sent someone out to inspect it and couldn't explain how that much energy had supposedly been used. I continued seeing UFOs for years, although none were ever as close or as dramatic as that first encounter. I have since learned that what I experienced might be known as the hitchhiker effect. I haven't seen anything significant in a long time now. I've had a lot of strange experiences in my time living in Laramie. One place that always felt kind of spooky to me was certain old buildings on campus. It feels like there's an ominous presence lingering in the dark halls of the basements there. To truly understand this experience, there's some history of the University of Wyoming you need to know first. The University of Wyoming was founded in 1886, 4 years before Wyoming was even a state. The local cemetery, Green Hill Cemetery, was built in 1881 and is full of graves that were moved from different parts of town, including from where the university currently resides. Because of this, many people believe that some of the spirits are not at rest after having been moved, causing many hauntings around town. One haunting on campus is the story of a little girl who haunts Night Hall. People say that when this building was being constructed, the body of a little girl was found where the foundation now sits. Although the body was removed, people claim they still see a little girl in the windows. They also say that sometimes she can be seen running around the halls, especially in the basement. This is where my strange experience begins. I was wandering the halls of Night Hall with a friend one day. When we made it to the basement, I had heard the story of the little girl, but assumed it was just a rumor, since there wasn't much evidence to support it. In the basement, we noticed that all of the lights were out, which was weird because I'd been in the basement before, and the lights usually turned on when you walked by. Something felt very off as we went deeper into the hall. It got colder and even quieter, kind of like when snow falls and drowns out sound. My friend, not picking up on any of this, turned the corner and ran as a prank, leaving me in the dark. As I sat in the dark, cold hall, I froze. It felt like someone was right behind me, quietly breathing on my neck. I knew it wasn't my friend. She was down the hall, and the only way back to where I was by coming back the way she had gone. I felt someone gently touch my shoulder, and as I nearly screamed and whipped around, I heard my friend scream and come running back to me from down the hall. We both ran back to the elevator and out of the building. She later confirmed that she heard running behind her and felt like someone was coming straight at her. The thing is, there was nothing past where she had been but a wall. She ran the opposite direction toward me. Right as I was touched on the shoulder. This was definitely the scariest experience I had on campus, but not the only one. The University of Wyoming definitely has some hauntings, and I'll try to post more of my experiences.
Make sure to like and subscribe. If you have any stories you would like to share with us, our email is in the description. Let's continue.